The opinions expressed during this podcast are the individual's own and do not represent those of Wyndham City Council.
Hello, and welcome back to Recently Returned after our hiatus. I'm one of your hosts, Kirsty, and today we're kicking off a series of short summer episodes where we'll get to know our library staff a bit and hear some great summer reading recommendations. If you're a regular listener, you'll probably recognize our first guest, Anita. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Kirsty. Thanks. Good to be here. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Glad to be back for another summer series.
Me too.
So we're going to get started with a couple of short rapid fire questions just to get to know your reading habits. And on that note, our first one is, what is your worst reading habit?
Starting with the tough questions, really exposing us here. Look, it's a bit of a shame to admit this, but I do tend to ignore my to be read pile. So there are some things that have been languishing there for years while I pick up all the bright new shiny books. So that's, I think, a pretty bad reading habit because the best intentions are there to get through those older books, but don't always get around to them.
Yeah. I think the pile of books I own but haven't read yet is taller than I am. And it's not helped by working in a library, right?
Exactly. Real hazard of the job, that one.
So our second question is, which book do you wish you could experience again for the first time?
I think this one's a hard one because it's not so much experiencing the book again for the first time, but also capturing the frame of mind you might have been in when you read it for the first time. I sometimes have gone back to reread, for example, something I read in high school and really loved and was like, wow, I loved this book at the time. It had such a big impact on me. But then reading it as an adult, it doesn't quite have the same impact. And that's, I think, for the obvious reason that I've been at a different time in my life and it can't have the same effect. So sometimes I'd love to not only experience it for the first time, but to relive it in the same way when it's been something that's had a big impact. Like I remember reading Cloud Street by Tim Winton for the first time in high school and loving that and just finding the characters so amazing, but never quite found the magic in that book again when I've tried to reread it. Yeah.
There have been some books that I'm nervous to reread because they had such an impact the first time I read them. I'm worried the magic won't be there anymore. So I
Yes.
completely understand where you're coming from there.
Mm.
So we've got one more rapid fire question, and that is, what is the most challenging book you read this year?
Yeah, I thought this was a tough question too, because challenging can mean challenging in different ways, but I've taken it to mean challenging my levels of comprehension because I've chosen Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which is a science fiction space set in space that involves a lot of science, engineering, aeronautics talk that is well beyond my level of comprehension. But luckily, it's a great read with a great story, and you don't actually need to understand those things in too much detail to enjoy it. But it was challenging because I felt like a lot of it was going over my head.
Yeah. It's on my to be read list. I enjoyed his first two, but yes, sometimes you just have to accept I'm not really gonna understand what you're talking about here, but I trust that you know what's going on.
That was the case here. It's like, yes, this sounds very impressive and scientific. Um, so I'm sure someone else is getting a lot out of this, but unfortunately not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, great book nonetheless, though. Highly recommend.
I'll have to bump it up my list a bit, I think.
Mm.
Thanks for answering those rapid fire questions. And we'll be asking everyone in the summer series those same questions. So it'll be very interesting to see what people think. So this is what we're waiting for. What
Mhm.
is your summer reading recommendation?
Again, tough decision, kind of looking back at what I've read this year and what I would recommend to people over summer. And I've landed on a book called The Switch by Beth O'Leary, which I read actually at the start of the year, almost in summer, earlier in the year. And I just think it's a really charming read and just that perfect summer escape. It sort of follows two characters. Lena, who is in her 20s, has been working herself absolutely crazy at a really busy job to the point where she's so overworked and stressed that her work has started to suffer, and they've actually asked her to take some time off. Like, you need some time off, you need a break, take a couple of months off, and we'll talk then. And then also with another character, Eileen, who lives in a Yorkshire village, and she's 79, and she's kind of sick of it. She's, I've hit this age, I've still got a lot of life in me, but this village life doesn't have a lot to offer. So the two of them decide to swap the switch, and to swap lives for a couple of months so that Lena can have a change of pace and her grandmother, Aileen, can enjoy the busy life in town. And, there's a lot of learnings for both of them, a lot of fun, a lot of relaxation as well. And I think it's just a really charming village story, but also an intergenerational one, as they can both learn from each other. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't want to give too much away about what exactly happens to them on their swaps, but needless to say, it's a good experience for both of them.
So does Lena's grandmother work at her job? Or is it more a location swap?
Yeah, it doesn't quite go that far. That would be a big swap. More a location swap. So location, she gets to meet some of her friends in town, go to some of the parties she might go to, because her friends are like, we want to take you under our wing, well, let's look after you. But no, she has taken a couple of months off work.
Oh, well, they say a change is as good as a holiday. So it sounds like the perfect summer reading.
Yeah, change of pace, change of scene, really charming characters, and just a lovely concept. I've actually read a couple of others by this same author and have enjoyed all of them. So thought this would be a good recommendation for summer for our listeners.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. And thanks everyone at home for tuning back in. We'll be airing an episode a week of the summer series for a little while now. So keep an eye on your podcast app. If you've read any of the books we talk about, or if you'd like to leave us a comment, you can do so on the library's Facebook page at Libraries in Wyndham, or email recentlyreturned@wyndham.vic.gov.au. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks once again, Anita, for that great recommendation. And thanks for listening at home. As always, happy reading.
Happy reading.